want it to be very interactive, and I'm going to basically ask you two questions, but before I sort of go into that, is that most people have a fear of talking, a fear of all sorts of things, and therefore there's a lot of issues around death and that sort of thing that people then fear. So just thinking about that, it's really, what we produced here is not necessarily going to get rid of the fear. It's not going to get or change the circumstances of what has actually happened and triggering you. It is actually going to allow you to be able to manage the process that you're then going to go through, or the family, more importantly, are going to go through. So I'd like to ask you, when you're thinking about your own affairs, is there something that you honestly are avoiding at looking at? It's quite interesting, the things that we don't want to see, and I know in my own situation is that my parents would say to me, oh look, here's the will, and I go, yep, put them in the filing cabinet, I'll look at them later. They tell me certain things, yep, okay, yeah, I'll make a mental note of that, I'm not ready, I'm busy doing this. There was all excuses as to why I didn't need to look at it right there and then, I'll do it later. The trouble is that Dad went first, and then I was dealing with Mum and health issues and everything else, and in the process of what she decided to go through. And you basically keep putting things in the way for what you're trying to achieve, as an excuse as well to not have to deal with the certain things that you know you should be, but you decide not to. Then she passed, and then I'm having to answer the question going, I remember something about that, but nah. And trying to source out, right down to there was certain, we'd made agreements where there would be certain places where documentation would be kept and held. And I know when Dad went, I said to Mum, oh, where's the paperwork we've agreed it was going to be in the filing cabinet? The answer I got was, I don't know where your father put it. He put it somewhere safe, I'm not sure. One particular pile of stuff I found 2 months ago, and they'd been gone for, as of July this year, been gone for 2 years, and that was sitting in an esky in under the stairs that I was about to bip out. Went, oh, hang on, I better look through this, and then found, oh, okay, here's documentation that I was looking for and needed. So, as I said, have a think of what you're actually aware or unaware of what you're not wanting to deal with, because that is going to come back at some stage, and you may not be having to deal with that, but your loved ones will have to deal with that. And the whole process of this is to be able to make that process easier for them. They're still going to grieve, they're still going to deal with what they need to be able to do, but if you can make those little things so much easier, it just changes things for everybody. The last question that I'd love you to think, and please, if people got comment, do, as I said, I'd like it to be interactive, but it's not at the moment, everybody's very quiet.
Okay, Malcolm, who decides who can get your body once you've died? How does that process work?
Who can get your body?
Yeah, so like if you died, you're in the morgue, whatever, is it the undertaker you've picked, or who decides who's getting the body?
Well, you
And
need
if
to
there's a
pick,
fight over it,
you have to pick an undertaker because they will pick the body. So for example, if you, however you died, whether the coroner's case or in hospital or whatnot, the body will then be then needed to be picked up and it needs to go to a funeral home. If you want it to go somewhere differently, you've got to make sure that you've organised and arranged for that. So personal family can, but you've got to have at least worked out and know what you're doing through that process. Otherwise, normally the hospital will, and that sort of thing, will not release it. They'll release it to a funeral home. And normally when the funeral home picks it up, they start the process of organising the death certificate. So they'll sit down and get information. Interesting on that is that some of the information that they'll get is, for example, your mother's maiden name. And if you're sitting there going, I have no idea, that becomes an issue. So they'll need certain information to then be able to produce the death certificate. Interesting enough as well is that if there is no body, there's no death certificate for a period of time, quite a considerable period of time. So if you're lost at sea or in an accident, I was at a session the other day where a gentleman was talking about his father was lost, was in the first plane that went through the towers, never received a body back. Was on a manifesto that he was on the plane, uncle dropped him off at the airport, but still no body was ever received back. So once again, there was only services that are being held, but there's also a time frame to take you through that period as well. So things like insurances, assets released and all that does not happen until you've got a death certificate. And if you don't have a death certificate, you've then got to go through the process to prove that that person no longer is here. But that's...
You still pay insurance. One of my friends died in a diving accident. His wife was still paying insurance and found his body like 2 years later.
Yeah. I've had cases where people, once again, through law firms, and you need a law firm to be able to do the wills and all of that, but have misunderstood the certain contracts, and I'm sure Glenn will have the same, where you've got a family that's still paying for something that is potentially never going to cover them, and should have been told to stop that and keep the others. And you've really got to be careful. So the last question that I'd love you to think on is that if something happened to you tomorrow, would the people closest to you know where to start? And that's the thing that you need to be thinking.
95% of people would say no to that.
Yeah, no.
Some do, some don't. Some have got a book they've written down. I've met so many people that are doing something and do actually have something. I had a gentleman, elderly gentleman, look at my book a month ago and go, I've got some of these things already started and done, which was awesome. I said, great, if there's anything in there you're not doing, start to do. And if you're unsure, then look at it. But some do it. You will find some people, my mother-in-law was very much that way. My grandmother was very much that way. You'd walk into the house and look at dishes and they had people's names written underneath on sticky labels.
But it can happen to anyone, as in someone who's 30, 40, 50, not at the elderly end as well too, where there's no plans in place. And I'd reckon that would be huge. And it just reminds me, I'll get her to speak. A friend of mine has just been given power of attorney for both her parents, etc., and has signed all the paperwork as well too. I reckon she wouldn't know where to start if something happens with one of them or both of them or whatever. I might get her to speak to you if she's willing to.
Can I just add something? Like, one thing in life is guaranteed, we're all going to die. And it's no, we're all going to die. If you're organised or you're not organised, dealing with people that are not organised makes it so hard for their loved ones. So everyone's going to die, so we all got to face the fact.
Yeah, and on that, I think one of the things that I had a father who passed away really, really young, and I just have this really strong memory of how distressing it was for my mum when some of the bank accounts that they had shared hadn't sort of administered things appropriately, and so she was still receiving post from sort of formal post from institutions for a really long time afterwards, and it was so distressing. And you sort of think, perhaps she didn't know, or like, so I think what you do
Probably
is
wouldn't have done.
really important for those sorts of reasons, because grief is big. And then all the stuff around it, if you haven't communicated it, it can actually make grief harder.
Yep.
If you haven't, so some of that stuff, it's really, I think.
Yeah, and can I just say something too further to that? I know first-hand experience that when your husband, wife, loved one dies, there is a period of probate. Whereas you can't touch anything, you can't touch the assets. So you need to make sure that your loved one or partner has funds available just to live. When my dad died and my mum was going through a grieving period, and she was in her 40s, and she had to go and get a job in the cafe because she had no access to the money because the assets were all frozen during the probate period. So little things like that make a huge
And
difference.
You give them
Yours
power of
very
attorney
important.
though, you can give your spouse or someone power
It's
of
still
attorney.
hard to get access.
Karen?
Yeah, so my father-in-law passed away about 4 years ago, and we had no access where the will was, and that was the biggest, got Glenn involved, and it was just absolutely took us good 18 months to find out who actually had the actual original will. And in the Indian mentality, the husband or the father or the man of the house had complete control of the financials. The mother got no idea with very little English, and like even today she can't not open her own bank account because she had no income coming. Like little things like credit card or bank account, it is just, so even today I'm still controlling her financials. We are supporting, trying to find a way, and the bank just won't because no, it was under your father's name. The mother had no proof of anything, like it's just, so you absolutely resonate, like, like what would happen if I go away tomorrow? I don't think Rita or my kid will know, I've got so many, multiple businesses, passwords, all that stuff.
Streaming services.
That's what
Golf memberships.
And I'm into AJ events every day.
So I'm definitely gonna take that up, so it's just like, all of a sudden, like, it's just gonna, and you know how you do it, you always thought, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it. And you've been on my back for the last 12 months, and I said, yep, I will do it, and it's just like, man, I'm doing it now rather than tomorrow. Tomorrow will never come.
It's so important,
Yeah.
because you don't realise that will actually happen, and it's too late then, it's far too late, and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Besides finances, it's weird that you're talking today because a week or so ago, me and my partner were talking about what happens if we go and my little fella, what happens with him? Like if we don't have wills, what's the go? Where do you
The government and the land here have a very great process of having a plan B for you. And it may not be what you really want.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a will, they've got a plan B, and it goes through a structure, and the end of the day, that structure is goes to government. But it'll go through, so it may go to partners, it may go to siblings, it may go to parents or whatever. And the interesting thing is I can tell you so many different stories of experiences I've been involved in where it goes really pear-shaped, and the results you would not even believe would have come out, but they're legal.
No, and that's true, because a mate of mine, Scotty, Scotty McIntyre, he's gone through that exact process with his mum.
And they take a percentage.
They
of the
take
estate.
a huge
they
amount.
do,
Yeah, all the trustee account.
They learn from solicitors.
So as far as the little ones, the government or the courts will make a decision if you have not made it a choice or put in processes to be able to deal with that, which may or may not be in the little one's best interest, because they will look at it from a bureaucratic point of view of what's best for the child, not understanding the family dynamics. They'll make an assumption and then put a ruling in of what's best, they believe best for the child. In all cases, they're trying to do the best. We just know what government and bureaucrats trying.
And if had a conversation with you and something set in place that outweighs anything else?
Well, you start to document what you're actually wanting. Anything that you're documenting that can be then shown to the court of why. The simple case is that certain people do not want to have family to get anything of their assets or their money and that sort of thing, which is very difficult because you can contest a will and it doesn't quite go the way you want. But any documentation and any reasoning that you put down then go to show cause as to why.
Just on that question on document, where is that document held or stored?
Just make sure you know where it is, like
Yeah.
it's one password or it's, you know,
It's
some.
safe.
Isn't there a register of it?
There's not even a register of wills that is general to Australia. Each state has something that they've tried to do. Some of them are privately owned, some of them are government, but there's not one register within Australia. Our worst case is it took 9 months to find the last will, and it was about 7. Each will that you do says it discontinues the previous, and this is where you move forward. The issue is around, in that situation, the issue is around when you've got multiple assets in different countries, which a lot of people do. So therefore what you're telling that what you've done, say in the UK or in Germany or whatever, this will now becomes everything, and you're talking 2 different jurisdictions, you're talking different laws, you're talking different situations. So anybody that's got multiple properties, I suggest they have multiple wills, and they're actually not discontinued from each other. They are acting in a case.
Sorry, Malcolm, probably taking over your presentation too much here, but one thing I want to add is about capacity. So you having the mental capacity to actually document something that is then
Yeah.
held up in a court, held up as, yes, I had mental capacity to make that decision to give my assets to someone.
Yeah.
So even before we're passing, whilst we're able to make a decision for ourselves and document that, it's probably a step before the passing of making sure that that document is actually going to be most allowable or viable to the courts.
Yeah.
If it was contested, usually people fight over money. There's no fight, it usually goes a bit easier.
If there's no money, no fight.
Yeah, don't have much.
Get rid of everything.
After nothing's still nothing, is what I'm saying.
Just quickly added, one of the quickest frustrations is, even though we're one country, if you move from one state to another state, you know, all the documents change. So you might have Queensland, but you move to Kingscliff, and most of your documents are useless then.
Depending on where your assets are held,
Yeah.
especially property or physical assets.
Yeah,
There's
whatever,
different-
yeah, that address,
there's
yeah.
restrictions, yeah.
One of the other things that
Yeah.
I've sort of been looking at lately too is the will is very much a personal thing, and please correct me here where you need to. But then if I'm a sole director of a company, that then makes it really hard for, like, my power of attorney isn't attached to the company, it's only to Corey. So LSB is total separate entity, so trying to get someone to get money out of or pay invoices or act in the business's best interest to wrap that up is completely different. And then the other side of things then is the super, another document entirely again. So, you know, it's almost like 3 separate wills just for those 3 separate things in a way.
Yep. And then take into crypto,
Yeah,
which is then different again.
yeah.
One of the other things that I think is probably also worth noting is if you have, you and your partner have views around how you want to be treated if you lose capacity and what health plans you want for that. So, and I think there's actually specific legal processes to go through.
Yeah,
But at the very least, you want your family members to know what your wishes are. Because, you know, like, my brother and I have a joke that each of us kind of, you know, laugh at each other for a week and then pull the plug, but, you know, let them dribble and then rip it out. But you need to know what those things are.
And every state's got a different document.
Yeah.
Malcolm, with people that don't have wills, what do you see as one of the biggest downfall why people why don't people do wills? What's their fear around it?
Some people, it's a belief that if they think about it, work it and talk about it, it's gonna happen sooner. So there is that belief. Other people, it becomes overwhelming. they don't know what, and the more they start to think about it, the more it becomes a mammoth beast that they can't deal with it. And so that's why we would sort of say, you start to go through. The other thing too is that you go to a lawyer, they're trying to draw out of you what you're trying to do. They do the best they can, but with the information that you've been given. And you haven't had any thought process in around that. So we say, have a think about what you're doing, have a discussion, then go to the lawyers and draft what you're wanting, because they can then legally tell you where you're going and what you're doing and what the pitfalls are, but they understand the context of what you're trying to achieve.
And is that what your book does, step that out?
It does that. It gives, it's a conversation, but the interesting part is that when people don't know what you're doing, and most people are secret, they do not want the family to know what's happening until they have to know, and that becomes difficult because not even the executor knows.
No.
So having conversations, I know in my personal situation, my parents made certain choices. It was very clear, those choices on their death, and it pissed family off, and it caused rifts. Had it been done slightly different, it would have been a lot better for me, but shit happens.
So basically,
Susan, going back to, go on, you go, who was that?
so would you purchase one of these and follow, I just had a look through it, it's pretty much got everything in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And then this is what gets put with your will.
That goes with it, so therefore the executor is going to be looking at that, because that is basically the map, the clues, the where do I start to go and look. A will just basically says, if you understand what a will says, 100% of my assets, and Corey's correct, is that certain things are not part of your assets, you then need the extra documentation to show that. I want this to happen, so it might go to my partner, or it might be split up between my children equally, or whatever. It doesn't tell you where they are. It doesn't tell you whether they're still there, or you've decided to change them, sell this, buy this. It's a guessing game. And then where's the documentation that you're gonna need to then be able to do what you need to do, whether it be liquidated, pass it on to somebody, whatever.
It's more complicated than that too, because we have spoken before, just in regard to your passwords, your bank accounts. The third person's got no idea, but there's no starting point because there's no passwords, usernames.
Yes,
and
it's
all
on the
this stuff.
desktop, the Excel spreadsheet called password. I see it every day.
I'm just saying, that is important.
Well, you look
Have
underneath
you or
the
should you
keyboard,
share
it's
that
got
with
a
someone?
link under that there, security.
No, I got you. But also with your phone, with photos, people like photos, etc. For example, if I passed away now, no one would have access to all the photos and the kids, etc. If someone, maybe it can be your kids that pass away or someone else, because that's an important part of people's lives, which is generally their phone, etc. It's all on Instagram and Facebook pages and access to.
Which is all in
that's
there.
all part of that as well.
Can I just say a really
Yes,
quick
Glenn?
thing, is not taking away from Malcolm, most people don't know people's direct debits like Netflix, all this stuff coming
All
to the
that
bank.
stuff.
So, I've got this open app, banking app, so when you die, someone gets a list of all your direct debits. And, you know, I mean, we always change in direct debits to different things, so even something like that is so crucial, just knowing, you know, your direct debits if someone dies.
You can give access to someone now that has all photos on your Facebook.
That's in that too.
If you give them certain details. If I passed away, I haven't done it. I sent this to you about 2 years ago, didn't I?
No.
Huh?
Yep.
Yeah. As in, someone's got access to, because if I pass away, the kids probably want access to who's dad's friends and whatever, who's that, why, they go through a bit of history. But everything's on the goddamn phone. But I can't remember even how you do that now, to be quite honest.
If you pass away, that is the easiest way to start working out who the contacts are, who you've been dealing with, and then I've had certain cases where people haven't been able to use photos for the funeral because they haven't been able to get access.
100%.
AJ.
Just a quick question, on the book, would you recommend sharing that with your children, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, to the degree that you're comfortable, I suggest to start off with, you leave it on the coffee table and you start to have a conversation. Then as you go through, you'll start to have conversations around what you're doing. You may not want them to see everything in the book.
But
at any particular
But wouldn't
time.
that sort of like scare the children? Why, Dad, all of a sudden you're showing this book? Is there something happening? Or come back scared? Wouldn't that sort of like create a fear amongst the children?
Didn't know he had that much money.
They call that pre-planning for you.
Your executor should know what's in there, yep.
I say,
Time up,
yeah, okay, yeah, time's up there now, so.
Malcolm, how much is the book?
$3.98,
$3.98.
yep.
Just for one thing, for ladies and husbands who don't have separate credit cards, get a separate credit card while you're still working.
Yep,
Because when you pass
Great
away,
advice.
when you pass away, you won't get one, when your husband or wherever the income.
If you retire, you won't get one anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you get one each.
It's interesting world, that isn't, because sometimes most of the conversation about people being a bit older, it doesn't have to be spotted a little bit older either, to be quite honest.
Who knows when you're gonna pop?
What, $3.98 was it?
$3.98.
It rounded up to $4. Man, that's good value.
Julie,
She's
Julie
not here.
Water, not
No.
here. Next please.
Slack.
Yeah, Kelly's got a great question and I don't know the answer.
Ah, you turned up at the right time.
Yep.
Kelly just asked me for.
Hang on, Glenn,
No.
Kelly's got.
No, it's not the price.
Something else,
Yes, Kel.
Just one last question.
I'll
Yep.
let you have it anyway.
Hang on, guys.
If you have a joint bank account with your husband or partner, could you, would you be stopped using your own bank account if that partner dies?
if it's a joint one, I'm gonna say something here that I don't give advice, and I'm very clear about that. And commonly, most people will not necessarily tell the bank what's happened until they've been able to sit and understand and make choices.
But what if, once the bank knows, can you?
Once the bank knows, they will then go through their protocol. If it's a joint account, they may double check, they may start to put restrictions, they will start to act really funny. If it's just in that person's name, it'll be frozen.
So if it's joint, take the money quickly is what it's saying.
That's not what he said.
That's what some people do, yeah. That's what I'm advising.
That is exactly what he didn't say.
Because the joint account's still your
Yeah,
money.
that was exactly what he didn't
The
say.
joint account's still your
brother
money, but then if the will says something really different, then they will look at the will and look at the assets of it.
So it's worth asking that question as well. All right, so.
Thank you.